Hello everyone, and welcome back to another R tutorial video. And in this video, I want to wrap up our discussion on tmap by talking about how we can put multiple maps and arrange them onto a single map frame. And we're going to look at two approaches. The first approach is called facet mapping, which is going to be similar to if you use ggplot2, the idea of facets from ggmap or from ggplot. And the other is going to be something called tmap arrange. And we're going to look at each of these, go through some examples. And again, the point here is if we want to have multiple different smaller maps in a single document. And let's start off by talking about facet mapping. So facet mapping, again, if you're familiar with ggplot2, this is going to be the same sort of thing with facets. If you are not familiar with ggplot2 and the idea of facets, essentially what we're going to do with facets is we're going to allow one variable to split the data out into multiple different subsets, and then we're going to map each subset separately. And that's going to make a lot of sense here in just a second. So what I want to do is I want to start off with our roads data that we've been using before, and we're going to call this map_roads. We're going to use tm shape with the roads shape. All right, this is what we've always done before. And then we're going to do the tm lines. And we're going to start by just doing the line geometry. So if I do that, and then I do map roads, and I run that, you'll see that we have all of the roads in the roads data set being mapped on a single map document. And that's all well and good, that's nothing new. But what we can do with facets is we can separate out or subset the data. I'm actually going to copy and paste this. So we've got this is the exact same thing we just had. And we're going to call this facet. And what we're going to do here is we're going to call a new function called tm_facets. And you'll see here that in this contextual layer, it has a by equals null, an n call equals na, and an n row equals na. And what we're going to do is for the first one, we're going to focus on that by parameter. And what tm facets is going to do is it's going to break up the roads shape, right? The tm shape that it's referring to. It's going to break that up by a variable that's inside of roads. And so we've used the roads dataset multiple times. So if you don't know where this is coming from, we're pulling one of the variables out of the roads dataset called AV_legend. And AV_legend is just, it's the category of road. So it's highway, public street, bridge, those sorts of categories. And what tm facets is going to do when we run this, assuming I don't crash, is it's going to pull out each one of those different factors in AV legend. It's going to make a separate map for each of them in a single document. So let's take a look and see what this looks like. All right. So you'll see what I just said. Right, we have now each level of the factor that is AV legend, because again, AV legend is just a factor variable in the roads data set. So each level gets its own map: footbridge, highway, highway secondary, local road, parking, trail, etc. And you can see that each one of these gets its own map. So for local road, right, this is just the data from roads that has an AV legend of local road, right? So these highways have been taken out of this. Conversely, highway prime, this is just the primary highways. And you can see that local roads, for example, have been taken out of this. So this is a great way of just quickly examining the different facets. For example, if you thought there was some sort of difference between different facets, using a facet map like this is a great way to just quickly visualize multiple facets and sort of compare them side by side. What makes facets even nicer is that if we copy and paste this one more time, is that we can actually, let's go ahead and throw in a Coro there and a Coro there. And I'm going to show you one of the things that makes facets so nice is that when we call the geometry, right, in this case, this TM lines here, we can actually do something that we've been doing with colors, and we can actually create a choropleth. So we're going to create a choropleth in this case using length, which again is another variable coming from the roads dataset. And this choropleth map is something we've seen many, many times before, so I'm kind of going to go a little quick here. We'll leave the style and the number of classes the same, but I want to, simply because I hate the default color palette, we're going to change the palette to BUGN. And so if we run this, and then we run this, you'll see that what we've done is we've not only separated out the different factors in the facets variable, so AV legend, so each one of the road types got its own map, but we've also then gone through and done this choropleth map to all of the different facets, and they share the same legend. So all of these different facets are color-coded based on their length. So you can, it's kind of hard to see on my screen, but you can see that we have, we've color-coded them in a choropleth map, and we've separated out each of the factors. So again, this is just kind of a useful way to be able to visualize your data. If you think there's a certain important trend based on a factor variable, you can separate it out and really quickly look at things. So hopefully this makes sense. In the next video, we'll talk about tmap arrange, which allows us to sort of composite different tmaps together. Again, it'll make a lot more sense in the next video. But for now, if any of this facet stuff is confusing, I would encourage you to go back, rewatch the parts you're confused about. And as always, please reach out. Thank you.